Now I want you to introduce some members of our living history. I will start with Julik Chloe. Julik takes us back to our beginning in 1943. He was a young Polish refugee who made his way from Siberia to the present-day Iran, then finally to our first project in Santa Rosa, Mexico. So much of his story resonates today: displacement caused by war and violence. Eventually, Julik made his way to the US and had a successful life as an American citizen. I met Julik last June in Mexico when he went back to Santa Rosa for the first time since he was a young child. It was a pleasure to meet one of CRS' first beneficiaries at the site of our very first project. And that refugee settlement was just the beginning of our work in Mexico. We are still there, working to help, including the plight of refugees. This is Thomas Aguiapo. Many of you know Thomas' story, an orphan in a village in Ghana in the 1970s, who goes to school for one reason: because he's hungry and a CRS program is cooking lunch, a little snack. CRS program is cooking. Thomas turns into a star student, gets his master's degree in California, and returns to Ghana working for CRS. Now he tells his story in parishes and schools across the United States during Lent to support the CRS Rice Bowl and to highlight our work feeding and educating millions of children. This is Natalie Parino. I'm doing a good job. When she was a child growing up in Rwanda, Natalie's family was displaced by conflict, and she was helped by CRS food programs through high school. Despite ethnic tensions in her country, her family and faith were a sanctuary. Natalie met the love of her life, a CRS field staffer named Dave Parino. They married and raised a family, eventually moving to CRS headquarters. Then, just days after Easter in 1994, came the phone call that will change their lives. During a painful journey that lasted more than a year, Natalie will discover that her entire family, over 100 people, were killed in the horrific genocide that shocked the world. We had been working in Rwanda for over 30 years. How did we miss the signs? What could we have done to prevent it? The genocide made clear that no matter how many people we fed or how much we improve economic well-being, conflict can undo everything. As Natalie can tell you, God's enduring love brings us healing and a better understanding that peace and justice must be at the center of all we do.
This is Rosa Anaya. Rosa started advocating for children and youth, and this is her daughter. Rosa started advocating for children and youth rights as a teenager in El Salvador and was a victim of the war itself. For more than 20 years, she sought ways for youth engaged in violence to change their lives, to become productive citizens and build peace. For the last 5 years, Rosa has led Second Chances, a CRS youth rehabilitation program in various prisons in El Salvador. We often hear about people fleeing violence and conflict, but we don't hear as often about the efforts of people like Rosa, who are working every day to reduce the violence in their home country, giving people a chance, a second chance, however many chances they need, to live in peace with their family and loved ones. This is Elias Vikash. Many people have heard about refugees fleeing terrible war in Syria, but not of the heartfelt personal stories. 2 years ago, Elias worked as a member of the CRS Mid-Atlantic office. But only 6 years before, his family fled Aleppo to escape the civil war. Before coming to the United States, he worked in Turkey, helping Syrian refugees gain access to water and sanitation services. Today, Elias is pursuing the second master's degree in water engineering at Villanova University. CRS began our work by helping refugees, and we have continued that work for 75 years. If any, none of them want to leave their homes. That's the last resort. When Elias spoke in Milwaukee this past year, he talked about home. And his brother is in England, his mother, father, and sister in Austria, and a sister is still in Aleppo. For them, home is Skype, where they can be together as a family. What above all people want is to remain together, to be that family. Elias, I am inspired by you, and I'm proud of what you do. I'm happy that your father always wears that Villanova sweatshirt you gave him. And I pray that your family will be together soon for the holidays. Chelina Malossi was born and raised in Tanzania and educated at a Christian missionary school. At age 18, she won a scholarship to Harvard. Then she moved on to Yale for a master's degree in public health and business management. Not too bad, huh? All right. After 12 years of working in the private sector, she moved back to Tanzania with her family because she wanted to serve those in need in her home country. Today, Chelina is head of programs for CRS Tanzania. Our agricultural programs provide a pathway out of poverty for smallholder farmers by helping them improve crop yields and better access local markets, so each farmer can provide for their families. When people ask me about Africa today and the problems, I tell them that actually I'm very optimistic about Africa, thanks to people like Chelina. If you see the great talent that we have in our Africa staff that Chelina represents. So thank you, Chelina. When you look at this living history around us, one theme is constant, that our work doesn't just help people through a tough time. It transforms lives, not temporarily, but permanently. And not just one person, but communities and families. That's the kind of transformational change we always strive for. And when we look forward, I think of two things. Two things that Mother Teresa, or Saint Teresa, taught me when I was in India. And they seem contradictory. It's to be bold and to be humble. We must be bold if we're going to bring peace to the many troubled lands around the world, whether it be Gaza, South Sudan, Central African Republic, or Central America, and all the other countries suffering great violence. We must be bold if we're going to stop malaria or end the spread of HIV/AIDS and Ebola. But we cannot accomplish these things if we're not humble. We must realize that those we seek to help know much more than we do about their local situations. They are our teachers, and we their students. And when we learn, when they show us the way, we will then move forward. We must also be humble because we're doing this for God. We are His hands, and it is that we work through Him.